Do I feel like I've wasted my 20s? Yeah, kind of. Well, first, what do I mean by wasted? I guess most people would define wasting their 20s as not having taken full advantage of all the opportunities you get only as a young adult. When you're young, fresh out of school, and need to start making money for yourself, your 20s are usually the time when you lay out the blueprints for the rest of your life. Of course, you can make changes in your life at any age, but you can never get back your youth. The steady decline towards death just gets steeper as you get older. In this video, I'm going to tell you the things I'm glad I learned in the past 10 years, aka my 20s. I'll cover it in the following categories, which I feel are the core foundations of adulthood. Money, career, health, family, friends, and future, aka my 30s. Starting with money.
Money!
This is perhaps the most important thing you have to get right as an adult. Because to do practically anything in our man-made world today, you need money.
I like money, though.
If you can consistently earn your own money, you've taken one of the first big steps towards independence. And yet, personal finance is not a core subject that's taught in neither grade school nor college. After graduating school, most people are just thrown into society without having a proper education on how not to get into debt, or even just basic knowledge like how to use a checkbook and a credit card. I learned about personal finance from a 10-week college elective, from which I remember practically nothing, my family, and many minutes of YouTube videos. The basics of how to manage your money are as follows. Don't spend more than you make. It only leads to debt and misery. Pay off your full credit card statement every month, because there's no sense in paying interest if you don't have to. For every paycheck you get, pay all your bills first, and then put the rest of the money into a savings account. Personally, I deposit my money into 3 different savings accounts. Why 3? Well, I'm going to tell you. First, I have a high interest yielding money market savings account for short-term savings or my emergency fund. This is money I can quickly access without penalty at any time. Second, I have a personal brokerage account for my midterm savings. In this account, I own stocks and ETFs. I can access this money at any time by selling my shares and cashing out. Third, I have a Roth IRA for my long-term savings or retirement fund. In this account, I own stocks, ETFs, and a total market index fund. This is money I can't access without paying a penalty until I'm 59 and a half years old. I have the most money in my Roth IRA, the second most in my personal brokerage account, and the least amount of money in my money market savings account. My biggest regret with money is that I didn't start getting serious about investing and saving until I was about 22 or 23, I think. This is around the time when I got my first real job and I started to learn about personal finance and retirement funds. I decided to get a Roth IRA because all the money that goes into it has already been taxed, and so I won't have to pay taxes on the money when it comes time to withdraw it. I'd rather pay all the taxes now and cash out everything when I'm older. When I first started investing, I played it safe and put my money into a Vanguard Target Retirement Fund, which invests your money in stocks and bonds. I set up automatic monthly contributions so that I can continually grow my long-term savings with dollar cost averaging. But then things changed in the year 2020. Fortunately, I didn't get COVID and I didn't lose my job. I was one of the lucky ones. Instead, I got hit by a Prius, which totaled my motorcycle and broke my wrist. After that, I had to pay for the ambulance and surgery. The ambulance alone was over $2,000. If I get hit by a car again, I'm just going to take an Uber to the hospital. Even with health insurance, I had to spend most of my money on my health, which depleted most of my savings. However, because I have a good auto insurance plan, I ended up getting a multi-$1,000 cash settlement. It was enough to cover all my medical bills, pay for a new motorcycle, and with the money I had left over, I considered quitting my job and taking a year off work. But then I thought about what I would do after that year off when I run out of money, and I had no idea what I was going to do after that. That's really the moment when I got serious about learning how to make my money last longer through investing. And when I say learning, I watched a bunch of YouTube videos and read a bunch of personal finance blogs. I also attempted to read many books about personal finance and investing, and I didn't get very far in them. From my personal finance education, I learned that I can more aggressively grow my long-term savings by investing in stocks, ETFs, and index funds. So instead of taking a year off work, I decided to divide the rest of my settlement money into an index fund in my Roth IRA. I opened a new personal brokerage account in which I trade stocks and ETFs, and re-up my emergency fund. My Roth IRA is money I'll get out when I'm old. My brokerage account is money for if I want to buy a house or another large expense. And my money market account is for immediate emergency expenses. And to keep up with dollar cost averaging, I made bigger monthly contributions into these accounts, which means I decided to keep working at a job I hated to finance my eventual retirement. Which brings me to career. On this channel and in real life, I frequently complain about working.
I don't like working! I don't know how people do it, it's horrible!
My first job after graduating college was banquet serving, which means I was a waiter at a resort hotel. It was the first job I could get, and it paid more than most other serving jobs. I highly recommend that everyone works in a customer service job at least once in their life. I think that working in retail or the service industry strengthens your character. Although it exposes you to many Karens and to the worst of humanity, it makes you understand and appreciate what people have to do in order to provide good basic service. And after you've been on the side of providing service, I think you become more appreciative of the people who provide it for you. At least I would think so. After my serving job, I was a graphic designer / executive assistant at a food packaging design and brokerage company. It paid well, and I had the best bosses I could ask for. They were an older couple who enjoyed gardening, cooking, canning, camping, expanding their home, and raising Springer Spaniels. I stayed at the job for almost 3 years, and then I left to pursue life in a big city. I kind of regret leaving that job, but my former bosses have since retired and closed their company, and I knew I wasn't going to be able to stay there for much longer anyway. After that, I moved to Los Angeles, and I'm going to make an entire other video about living and working here, so stay tuned for that. It's going to be a while. My ultimate career goal at the time was to be a designer at a design agency, but I've never been offered an interview at any of the agencies I've ever applied to. My design work isn't that good, I guess, at least not better than that of my competition. Nah, I get it. Instead of a design agency, I ended up in the world of art and design for entertainment media. It's a fast-paced world that involves long hours compensated with low pay and reasons to cry. When I started my first job in Los Angeles, I was getting paid less than what I was earning at my job in rural Washington. Los Angeles, the city of angels and the people they exploit. It really is true that all great empires are built on the backs of slaves. These days, we call them wage slaves. People get health insurance and paid time off as band-aids for giving their souls to their company. When I moved to Los Angeles, I was naive and willing to make sacrifices for my career. I landed an entry-level job into the media industry, and I was willing to take a lower salary. Most of the time when you're starting out in a new career, you have to start at the bottom and work your way up. Plus, the job was in entertainment media, and so I was given opportunities to meet famous people while working on photo shoots or events. Coming from a small town, that was dazzling. Being in the world of creative for a media company, I wanted to be an art director and then a creative director. After a couple of years at the same job, I worked my way up from being a creative assistant to an associate art director, but all the while I realized, wow, this job is killing me and I hate it. The work kept me so busy that there was never any time to do anything else in my life. Or at least that's how it felt. I was living in a big famous city, but I hardly had enough time to really explore and enjoy it. I was creating the art and design for everything in the company, from sales collateral to event signage. And for most of the time I was working at that job, I was the only full-time designer for the entire staff. The work was constant. It never stopped. I was working 9 or even 11-hour days most of the time, and while I was working at that job, I was being paid a salary range of $35,000 to $55,000 a year during the span of time I worked at that job. It was pure exploitation. And sadly, that's just the reality of working at a lot of these big companies in Los Angeles. They'll work you to the bone and pay you the least amount of money they legally can get away with. For living in West LA, I was earning just enough to pay my share of the rent with a roommate, feed myself, and put a little money into my savings each month. I left that job after about 3 years and started working at another media company, the place I work at now. I thought I was going to greener pastures, and in some ways I was, but after less than a year at my job, I realized I was going down a path that I no longer wanted to be on. My job pays me very well, but it's still overwhelming. I feel uninterested in my work most of the time, and that's why I decided to scale back to part-time. Instead of being entrenched in the work all the time, I needed to take a step back and really evaluate if my job was meaningful to me. It turns out, it's not. I'm coming to terms with the fact that I'm not fulfilled in a career in design. Design is cool and visually more interesting than most other jobs, but it's stressful and demanding as hell, especially in media. I work in the creative department for a corporation that owns many media brands, and there's a high demand of design for everything. My job could easily take over my life, but no amount of money is going to make it feel worth it to me. Maybe I could still enjoy being a graphic designer for another industry, but honestly, you have to put up with the same bullshit everywhere. I don't know why I do it.
Just to suffer.
No matter how old you are, it's never too late to change your career if you're not happy with the one that you chose when you were in your early 20s. 20-year-olds are basically teenagers with adult responsibilities. They don't know what the fuck they're doing, and they're stumbling along the way to figuring it out. I think most people get their lives sorted out in their 30s, and sometimes even in their 40s, 50s, or 60s. No matter how old you get, you're always going to keep learning about yourself and what makes you happy. As far as choosing a career goals, I think it is okay to follow your passions, so long as you don't do it in a way that's going to make you resent and hate your passions. I learned this the long and hard way. When I was 25, I applied for a job in entertainment media because I love movies and I thought it would be cool to work close to the film industry in some way. It turns out, however, that the entertainment industry is insane. Working in Los Angeles made me realize how toxic Hollywood is as a whole industry, whether you're in the production side of it or the media side. Either way, all big entertainment companies are run by people with inflated egos, dark fetishes, and exploited underlings. Hollywood is poisonous, and if it wasn't for some of the movies they make, I kinda hate it. I don't know why I'm still living here and paying taxes to this damn city.
'Cause you're an idiot.
Example number 2. I like to smoke weed sometimes. Because I like weed, I'm a little bit curious about what it's like to work in the cannabis industry. But I know I don't like weed that much. Like, I can't tell the strains apart, and I'll smoke bottom shelf shake all day. I don't care. I'm not a weed connoisseur and I don't intend to be one, so I got a job delivering weed because I don't have to have an in-depth knowledge of all the strains and brands, but I have my foot in the door to the industry if I decide I do want to go deeper into it. Plus, as a driver, I get a pretty good supply of free product from the company I work for. I'm part-time, so the job doesn't give me health insurance, but it has its benefits. I can go on forever about career stuff, so let's move on to health. Go to the doctor at least once a year, go to the dentist twice a year, eat more natural foods than processed foods, and drink water every day. I know exercise is also important, but I'm not going to pretend like I know about how to exercise good. The most I do is stretching, a few basic yoga poses, and some weightlifting with like 5-pound weights. If I didn't work so much, then maybe I would take yoga classes or go for more walks and jogs. Perhaps my health is something I should strive to do better in this year. So far, I don't have any life-threatening conditions, and I would like to keep it that way. Also, getting at least 8 hours of sleep a night is good for your overall health, especially your mental health. If you're not sleeping well, then you're more likely to forget things and develop health problems later in life. Things like Alzheimer's. Working too much contributes to a poor sleep schedule, which is another reason why I plan to quit my corporate job this year. I feel like I've sacrificed too much of my mental well-being to my job, and I want to be healthier. Next, we have family. I keep in touch with my family, but maybe not as much compared to other people. I text my parents and my sisters every once in a while, and we call each other on our birthdays and holidays, and sometimes just to catch up. That might not sound like a lot, but in my family, we always get along, and we all know we love each other, and we just don't feel like we have to keep saying it to reaffirm it. We also all live in different cities, have busy lives, and we see each other when we can make it work. This year I want to visit more of my family members, and I'm hoping that my work schedule will become more flexible so that I can take the time off to travel to make those visits. As my parents get older, I also eventually want to move closer to where they live so that I can visit them more often. As I get older, I have to start coming to terms with the fact that they won't be around forever, and so I just want to make the most out of the time that I have left with my parents. They're still very active and have a lot of healthy years left, so I'm not trying to make it sound like they're dying soon. This is more for long-term planning. I'm also open to getting married and maybe having 1 or 2 kids, but not until at least another few years from now. However, since I'm 30, my eggs don't have a lot of time left anymore, so I need to decide whether I'm going to use them or donate them. Every family is different. That's all I have to say about mine. Friends.
Oh, friend! Oh, new friend! Oh, friend! Please be my friend!
Most of the friends I have now are people I met through work. I'm not a very social person in general, but I do enjoy going out with people, so long as I plan it ahead, at least a few days in advance. I feel like I need to warm up to the idea of going out with people before I actually do it. Most of the time, I just hang out with my boyfriend. We're both introverts, so most of the time we just prefer to hang out at home. And from a financial standpoint, it probably makes the most sense for us too. We each pay over $1,000 in rent for our apartment, so we might as well spend most of our time here. I'm literally paying to be sitting in this room right now. Future. Part of being an adult is planning for the future. I think about the future a lot. Because I'm an anxious person, I mostly think about what can go wrong. Therefore, I like to have plans, backup plans, and backup plans. I know that God doesn't care about your plans or whatever, but having a plan just generally makes life easier. Even if it doesn't go the way you want it, having a plan at least lays out the groundwork for what you intended to do. But to be honest, I don't really have much of a solid plan for the future. For the most part, I kind of just go with the flow. I know pieces of what I want, but I don't have all the details of exactly when and where I'm going to do them. I know I want to build up multiple forms of income, quit my current corporate job, move out of LA, maybe out of California, and make a home for myself somewhere. I'd also like to travel and see more places before I die. In that sense, maybe I did waste my 20s. I could have been doing more of the things that I know will bring me joy. But traveling costs money and I was poor in my 20s. I was also too busy building my career. God, what a joke. I should have been doing what I'm doing now, but years ago. But that's life. You live and then you learn. Right now, I want my 30s to be about getting myself to a better place financially, professionally, and spiritually. So what have I learned from my 20s? Basically, how to be a well-functioning adult in American society. The 20s are the first 10 years of true adulthood. 18 and 19-year-olds are still teenagers. They're barely adults. If your age starts with a 1, you're still a baby in my opinion. In my 20s, I was young, stupid, and I didn't take a lot of risks. Now that I'm 30, I hope to be old, smart, and not afraid to fail. I also don't want to lie anymore, to anyone or to myself. I feel like I've been lying to myself a lot for the past several years. I've been telling myself bullshit, like, I'll get used to this job and learn to like it. It's okay to only sleep 6 hours a night. I'll be able to enjoy life more after I retire, when I'm old. This is what normal people do, so get used to it. I love my job. None of that is true, yet I continue to lie to myself, just to put up with a job I knew was killing me. Because of that, I was also lying to other people. A few years ago, if I wanted to leave work early or not go into the office, I would lie and say I had to stay home because I had diarrhea. No one's gonna question diarrhea.
I got diarrhea.
I have a bad case of diarrhea.
But now I realize that it's always better to tell the truth. Being honest is less messy, and I want to be honest with my employers. For example, my dad came to town unexpectedly on a day when I had to make a delivery shift. I didn't have enough leave time to request a day off work, so I considered telling my manager that I was sick so I wouldn't have to go to work. But then I asked myself, why do I feel like I need to lie to my boss? Am I afraid they won't let me take this time off? Why? The worst that can happen is that they say no. And if they say no, then maybe this is not the job for me. If I have to lie to them to take time off to see my dad, then they're not someone I want to work for. So in the end, I decided to meet my employer halfway. Instead of asking for the entire shift off, I'd asked if I could leave early so that I can spend more time with my dad. My manager was totally understanding and said it was fine. So yeah, honesty just makes everything easier. Maybe in 10 years, I'll be making a video about what I learned in my 30s. Assuming I make it to 40. The thing about life is that it can end at any given moment. People are dying right now. So my final piece of advice to you in this video is make the most of the time you have left on Earth. It's not original advice, but it doesn't have to be original. It just has to be good. Alright, thanks for watching. Bye.
I have a bad case of diarrhea. 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 I have a bad case of
肩に手を乗せ I have クロスして A bad case お腹をさすって of diarrhea ジェスチャーゲームの要領です。感情を込めてやってみましょう。
I have a bad case of diarrhea. I have a bad case of diarrhea.